Righty ho. So hopefully everybody can see the screen there. Now, I don't quite know what devices you're all using, so forgive me if I do read out some of the slides or a lot of the information, because I know that some people will be watching on their phones. I'm jumping between two screens here, so you'll have to forgive me as well if you can see me and I'm looking one way or the other. It's obviously not the best way that I'd like to be doing tonight. We'd like to have you in the hall, or at least in shed quarters, but as things stand, we're still virtual at the moment. Thank you so much for coming tonight and for joining. It is going to be a lot of me just sort of barraging you with information, but the really important bit is for you to soak it up and then to feed back in the best way possible. And obviously this forum doesn't really allow for us to do that. So there is a little survey for you. I know you love the surveys so much, but there is one, just a short one for you to do after tonight. And we really appreciate if you can do so. Okay, so I'm going to make a start. Hopefully everybody who's coming is in, or I can just let them in as we go along. So here we go. So we're here to talk tonight about the values and the future, two parts of the school development plan this year. And there's a lot of reasons why we want to talk about those and what we've done so far this year and what we intend to do in the future. So I really appreciate you giving up your time tonight to be here for this session. There's a little timetable there, but it does jump about all over the place, if I'm honest. As I said, there's quite a lot to go through, but there are the key areas that we'll be talking about tonight. Okay, so a few launches of new things and a few bits of information for us to talk about. So this slide here was a year ago when we had our last open afternoon just before schools closed. And I pulled this slide up from a year ago when we had that science afternoon, and it said, whilst we're still allowed in public places, please use the hand sanitizer. And I don't think we all knew quite where we would be a year later, but that just stood out as a little bit of a stark reminder to how far we've come in a year. And then to ascertain where we are now, well, as of yesterday, I've got the list of things that you're able to do. They're a little bit confusing, I suppose. You can meet in groups of 6 people as long as you're still 2 meters away from each other. So I'm assuming that most families have been measuring their gardens to see if they can fit those 6 people in. And I just feel a bit confused as to where we are now, because you just get the impression as though you've got one side of the fence where everything, the vaccination program has been such a success and we're trying to look forward towards the future. You just have that nagging doubt lurking in the back of your mind that there's still another twist in the tail yet. And hopefully there's not, but we just have to keep being prepared for that, because we've become very good at adapting with no notice. So I wonder how far we've come in just these 2 months, let alone the year. How do these 2 pictures make you feel? Well, whenever I see Boris sitting at a table like that now, I get this triggered emotion that he's going to close schools again. And also you've got a picture here of Google Classrooms, which for some people will give them quite a vivid emotion, because they lived and breathed Google Classrooms for 2 months. For about 45% of our families, they probably never want to see it again. We are going to be reinstating homework through Google Classrooms, but I think you've got to say to yourself, you've done an incredible job as a community of parents over the last 2 months, let alone the last year, in how you've responded to the changes that we've been faced with. So a brief update here on the CIBSE scale, just to show you, this is just one day. This is just the first day back here. And what you've got there is that the color green and yellow, they basically indicated that there were no issues in the classes or the children. Orange would indicate number 2, which was just that there were occasional worries. And then this blue meant that the child was at a number 4, where they were having frequent emotional reactions. So you can see that by and large, the children returned to school really, really well. But what I would say with a bit of hindsight is that probably we would have been better off doing the CIBSE scale the second or third week back. Children became more tired. I think that first week was a huge novelty. They were desperate to see their friends. They've become a bit more tired. They're a little bit grumpy. They're probably not themselves a little bit more. And we've just noticed that there's huge amounts of contributory factors when you think about it. Think about how many children haven't been able to have a sleepover or a birthday party that they normally have, or see grandparents. So there's lots of things that are really playing on their minds and they're having to put up with. But really, they've done very well, to be fair. So we'll continue to do the CIBSE scale as we go through at various points in the future. Now, the Museum of Moments. Well, thank you if you're a parent here tonight who has donated or I should say submitted an entry. We had over 90 entries, and so the video was 34 minutes long. When I pieced it together this weekend and put together all the video clips and the pictures, it would have taken the entire Zoom meeting. Obviously, many of you would have preferred to see that than to have me talking for 40 minutes, but instead I've got the link for you so you can see that. I will release that after this session. But a really vast array of skills, and it's been quite a nice project to put together, and hopefully we can take that into different places in the future. But really just nice to see the different types of skills our children have, from just being kind to their brother or sister, but all the way up to these extreme sports and all sorts of other things that our children get up to. So, onto the values. Why is it so important that we get this right? Honestly, there are tons of reasons, and I could go on for a long time about them all, but some of the key reasons below are, I personally believe, and I think we believe as a community, that the preparation for secondary school starts the moment your child begins in reception. And actually then going on from secondary school is into that next phase of adult life. The world around us is changing so much all the time. We've never seen that more than ever within the last 12 months. But it's a really key point as to why we look at our values as they are now and see if they need changing. And that we want to give our children the best chance to succeed. We're not an ordinary school. In my opinion, our parents and our community has responded so brilliantly to every hurdle that they've faced, that we're not a typical school. We're more than that. And I think that's because of the hearts and the community focus that we have. You all give back as much as you receive. And I think that that's another important to include you in this journey as well. So another reason, go back to the secondary school, I've taken this screenshot from my son who's in year 7. He's made the journey from year 6 to year 7 last year. And this is what his schools send out. It's called Go for Schools. So they send out a positive and negative behaviour update every day. So he's quite impressed that since he started school, he's got 79 positives, but he's also got 3 negatives. And he got one yesterday because his class was self-isolating on Friday and he didn't submit the science work in time. He was obviously quite miffed that he got a negative about that. But his 3 negatives have all come because of Microsoft Teams and submitting work online. He's had to become accustomed to that and using that program this year, which he wasn't very good with at the start. And to be fair, it's that journey from when they come into reception, all those little stages of independence. He's in charge of himself now in year 7, and there's nothing I can do about it. Typically, if he was in school, he might be getting a detention if he hadn't done the work on time. So it's all these jumps that we've got to prepare the children for as we get them ready for secondary school and beyond. And then going on from that, he was telling me yesterday on his school bus that Elijah threw a donut at Elliot. So Elliot went over to Elijah and punched him. They got into a fight. My son James was just watching this fight. And I think we do such a big job of trying to control our children and make sure that we're bringing them up in the best way possible, but we can't control them forever. And we've got to give them the tools so that they're ready to control themselves and make the right choices when they're out of our control. And I suppose that primary school is that first important journey where we've been able to dictate everything for them up to a point, and then They're on their own, and it's scary. I'm going to say, as a dad, I find it scary. I find it scary that my two eldest children come home and ask me what some of the words they've heard in school mean, but it's our duty to tell them and to teach them and to educate them as they go along. So not only do we not have control over certain things like the bus, because some buses are better than others, and obviously that's just my sons and daughters' school. They're on a public bus with 4 different schools on it. But also there's this world that we didn't really have to cope with ourselves as much. The online world is a much scarier place than it used to be. It's also a much more incredible and brilliant place, but it's much more daunting, and children can fall into traps much more easily than they used to be able to. I mean, if you go back a little bit further, think of those days. I remember the days that as a teenager, when I first had an email account, I used to get the Nigerian Prince email, which is here, the one that was saying, I've got $200 million and I'm going to give it to you. You can have a portion of it if you just send me over your bank details. We knew straight away that was fraud. But nowadays, it's so scary what technology is available. You can be sitting in Costa Coffee and somebody can be sat with his headphones on, and he is taking all of the data off your phone because he's got some plug-in Wi-Fi device that does it. And it's a much more frightening world. And I wonder what things our children will have to face in another 10 years. I mean, that's not to say it's all doom and gloom, because there's some brilliant advances in technology, but it's just worth us thinking about as we get them ready for those next stages. I mean, the poor children, bless them, they've got this global pandemic to add to a list of the things that they've had to think about. Now, you've got here a lovely picture, a postcard of what Sibsey School used to look like. I wish it still looked like that. I wish we still lived in a world where we could have the hedge and the fence. And for 99% of our society, we probably could, but we just don't live in that world anymore. But I think what we've really got to do is we as a community now have got to start thinking about the future again, because COVID has made us just stop and live in the here and now on this perpetual cycle. And if we don't start pushing forward again and look forward to the future, we'll end up just living in that repetitive cycle. So the final doom and gloom picture coming up is about preparing our children for the future. I would probably hazard a guess and say in my lifetime, I feel the world is at its most volatile and fragile place. You see polar extremes of views, you see lots of rioting across the world. Every time I turn on the news or I look at an update about something, there's a global situation. There's a lot of crises going on at the moment. There's so much political unrest. There's so much uncertainty. And I don't think that COVID has made it happen. I think it's just blown it up into the public domain. And I just want us to be prepared to help our children in the best way possible for the future that they go into, because our children at Sibsey have got so much to give. And you'll see a little bit about that in a minute. They really will make you proud. So as I say, it's not all doom and gloom. I mean, we've got Elon Musk and other great inventors charging the space race and off to Mars, and the types of things they're doing there are phenomenal. And I think that, you know, we've got to look at the life that our children will have when they're older, the types of things, if there's an injury to somebody, the types of prosthetic arms and the types of medical advancements that children are going to have in their lifetime will be incredible. So it isn't all doom and gloom. Anyway, as I move on, what type of things do we want from our children? So we want our children to be informed, but we don't want them to be scared. We want them to believe strongly in equality and respect for all of the people, all denominations across the board. We want our children to be proud where they grow up. We want them to be adventurous. We want them to aim high and to know what they want for when they're older. But most of all, we just want our own children to be okay. And when we send them off to fly from the nest, we want them to know that it's okay. It's their time to be independent and not be panicking about them. So that's why it's so important, I think, for us to reevaluate our current values against this current landscape. So I do also wonder if we've gone too far as a society. I see there's 2 school trips there that on the picture. If you can't see them, there's a lady in a car full of about, I don't know, 15 to 20 children. She's got a big smile on her face, and that was a school trip of the past. And then on the other side, and I will never ever ever buy these, I took 105 pupils to the O2 arena, and we saw children using these snake crocodile things, falling over in the road because the adults had told them to hold on tight to them. They're so safe, they become unsafe in the end. So you've got this sort of this paradox of, you don't want our children to have any risks, but we've also got to make sure that they're adventurous but safe at the same time. So the next quote is a follow-on from that. It's a "who said this" quote. I want you to just look at the red part here. It says, "Our argument is that a skinned knee or a twisted ankle in a challenging and exciting play environment is not just acceptable, it is a positive necessity. We need to prepare children for a complex, dangerous world in which healthy, robust activity is a more national need than ever before." So you wonder, who said something like that? Well, it was the Royal Society for the Prevention of Accidents. This is a group of people whose job it is to try and prevent accidents from happening, and they want children to start taking more risks, because otherwise they're going to grow up and not experience that. So last year, you supported us in developing our values. And here they are, the values that you can see on the board. And then we've got a little motto that goes with those values, which says, "Today is the best preparation for tomorrow." So if the children can live by the fact that they do all of those things well today, it's going to set them up for a bright future. So we ask the children then to come up with some steps to succeeding those values. How are they going to be brave? How are they going to be kind? Now, children all the way through, from the Pines to the Cedars, all age groups had to come up with answers. I took them in, I typed them up, I sent them back to the children, then they all talked about them again, and then they edited them, said which bits they didn't like and which bits they did like. And so I've re-edited them, and these are all from the pupils. I think you'll be really, really proud of them. So just to go through them in case you can't read them on screen there, the steps for being brave. Try to fight the feeling of fear and don't be scared. Try new things and have a go. If at first you don't succeed, try again, and stand up to things that are wrong. Then our steps for being kind, nice actions and nice words, help others, take turns, have a caring heart and respect all that we're all equal. Treat people how you would like to be treated. For being brilliant, be the best that you can be respectful and polite, bring out the best in others, and make the Sibsey family proud. For being honest, it was tell the truth, own up to our mistakes, tell people how we're feeling, be honest to ourselves, see honesty as the key to success, and then finally, being yourself, believe in yourself, know what makes us different makes us special, do your own thing if it brings you happiness, aim high and follow your dreams. I was absolutely, I wasn't surprised, but I was really, really proud of the children. These, I mean, it showed us all that children know the world they're living in, and they know what it takes to make a perfect environment. Obviously, they're not going to be able to completely live by those every single day. They're going to make mistakes, but that's part of it. And I think what's really important is that we then take these forward and we live by these values. As a Sibsey family, we've all adhered to them. The children, the adults, the staff, we all live by these values because they're set by the children. They're really, really, really a wonderful thing for us to hold ourselves to account by. So over the last year and before that, I think I think COVID's just exacerbated it. I really don't want us to lose sight of some of the positives that we've gained. I think that COVID's enabled us to break down some barriers in communication with each other. We can build on that even further. I did want to thank you as parents for the amazing part that you have played in our journey so far. The responses you have always given, no matter the sacrifices you've had to make in the last year, have been stunning. They've given us as a school an awful lot of support. And in times where we have really struggled, they've given us that boost that we've needed. And we have personally, as staff, I'm not just talking on behalf of myself, we have felt that we have been in this journey together. And I think that it's something that we mustn't lose. When things go back to more normal setup, we've got to build on top of that. And that's why I'm pleased in a couple of minutes, I'll be passing over to Mrs. Locke, who I should have introduced at the start, but she's our, as many of you already know her as a parent, but also a parent governor, and I'll introduce her a little bit in a moment, but she's got a great initiative that we're really hoping that some of you would like to get involved with. So before I pass over to Mrs. Locke, there's just a few more slides. So the next big project for us is this top up your tea. So this is another one for you to kind of mull over now and then feedback later. The Cedars have started this idea, and it's not a food bank. They really were keen for it to not be called a food bank because they think that sometimes that puts people off. But they wanted to recognise that they as children and we as a community in Sibsey are largely more fortunate than many other people around us. So what they're looking for, and the children donated a lot of their own little tins of food and pasta sauces. What they want to do is they want to start it with the school and then expand into the community, but they want to be able to let people take home a tin of peas or a jar of pasta and to make something with their own tea, just to top up your tea. So really, the question at this point is over here, how do we do it to make it work best? Would it work best if we just opened up that hut and parents came onto the playground and took the things they needed? Would it work best if you had a little shopping list that the children brought to school in their book bag and they signed off the things they wanted and they brought them home? Would it work best if the children were able to go off and deliver these to some of the vulnerable people in the community at different times? These are the sorts of things we want to get from you, because we don't mind if it only helps 5 people. We know that will be better than nothing, but the children are really keen. They think this has got quite a lot of legs to it. So it's something that we want your advice on and your opinion on. So that's something to think about. The next thing to think about is a bit exciting, because school trips have been a bit of a no-go, obviously, recently. And as they start to open up again, we're looking to use our local area a little bit more. So we can already take our children off-site in the local area, as we've got the written consent to do that. It's part of the normal curriculum. What we've got here is a local area learning policy, which we're currently making, which, on the advice that we've got from the county council, is that once we've got this in place, of all the places that we can go to, we can then start to use Sibsey a little bit more frequently. We can go to the park and we can go to the church yard even more often. We can go on little walks around Sibsey. So what we'd like to do is, once I've got some more feedback from the staff on this one, is to send you out a copy of the policy for you to put on the places that you would recommend that we would go to. And equally, the places that you would recommend as no-go areas, because we've got little areas that you might want. We're quite lucky in Sibsey because we don't have the bottom bullet point here, which is from our educational advisor in Lincoln, who said, if you've got an issue in your local area, such as drug needles, you might want to mark it as a no-go or teach the children how to deal with it, because it's their home and they need to be able to cope with it. We don't have that so much. We're not an inner city school with lots of high rates of crime, but we do have things that they'll stumble upon. You know, what to do if they see a beer bottle or a can of beer on the floor. And we need to teach our children how to respond to that appropriately. So we'll be hoping to get your feedback on that in due course. And I'm nearly done, you'll be pleased to know. A couple of slides here about our demographics, just to show you what things look like at Sibsey. So we've got 171 pupils on roll at the moment, 50-50 nearly boys and girls split. But if you look at this area here, our English as an additional language, we have 1 pupil in the school who comes to our school where English is not the first language. Nationally, that's 1 in 5 children. So we're so culturally bereft compared to other schools. We also have much lower rates of absence than the national figures, which is great. But here's another demographic to show you our religious demographic, showing that 95% of our pupils are Christian. Now, if you go to another school, only 5 minutes up the road, that can be flipped quite significantly. And I think that just shows we've got to make sure we're making our children ready for the world that they're going into, because some of our children will go and live in a city when they're older. And if they haven't experienced culture, they're not ready to understand the best parts of it. So we've got this equality and diversity framework. And this is something that, again, another bit of feedback that we'll be looking for from you. It's a very, very delicate issue in some respects. It's a wide spectrum of personal opinion. And I feel this is something that I've updated. This picture here is the most recent case of that secondary school teacher who's currently has been suspended after showing the Charlie Hebdo cartoons. Now, there's also 50,000 people who've signed a petition to get this teacher reinstated. We talked earlier about these polar extremes, and this is just another example of them happening in the world around us. At the same time, we've got to teach our children about those important things, that families come in different packages, families come in different shapes and sizes. Love is love, as long as it's pure and as long as it's got a good nature to it. And equally, we want children to be able to talk about their feelings. There are times where the children will talk to us and we will either phone the parent to encourage them to have that conversation at home about something, or we will talk to the child and encourage them to talk to their parents. But the most important thing is that nobody feels marginalized for being what they would perceive as different. And that's something as a community we've got to make sure that we keep subscribing to. Okay, so this is a bit more about the relationships, and I won't go into this one now, but this is something that a few years ago, Mrs. Hoft and I met with a group of parents in the hall, and we looked at the types of scientific words that we would be using in our science lessons, in our PSHE lessons, and all those sorts of things. And you'll see they progressively get more and more scientific and more graphic, but it's the most important thing is that children don't go into secondary school not knowing these words. And it's not just the old-fashioned, you teach puberty just before the children leave primary school. It's building those building blocks as they go along, but doing it safely and appropriately. So, a little incidental slide there just to show you that we do teach all the major faiths across the children's time in school. This is something that we won't obviously have time to do now, but as part of this framework that we're assessing ourselves, we're assessing our leadership team, the staff team, and the pupils, and then the wider community, which is us as parents, is how well we accommodate diversity and equality. So really a little bit of feedback from yourselves on the form would be brilliant for that, because there may be more work for us to do on this one. So the final one from me before I pass over to Mrs. Lott is a bit about the future. We've got the survey that I've mentioned, Make a Difference in a Day campaign, which is something we're really trying to get all the children to do before July. Go out into their local area once we've got this policy adapted, and then do something like a litter picking exercise, or delivering letters to people, or something that they do, maybe clean up the local park, something where they feel they're giving back to the community that they live in, because that's really important for us to be proud of where we live. We've got to now really live to those values that the children have written. Linking after lockdown is a project that we've started with another school. The head teacher that you see in that picture there is incredibly popular on Twitter. There's like 12,000 followers or something. It's beyond my understanding with Twitter, but we've been in touch, and we're linking up the Oaks class they've just done some postcards today and some poems, and we're posting them off tomorrow. And that school are posting some things off almost in the old-fashioned pen pal way. And then we're going to meet on Teams, because the schools are very culturally diverse. And we want to try and meet up with another school after lockdown and talk about their experiences and get to know some of the children. The Daily Miles coming back. I also want to just briefly mention we've got this new collaboration, quite excited about this, with a couple of other schools, Wrangle, who's very close by, and then Sleaford Church Lane. We're starting to work together as head teachers at the moment, but also then it will roll into the staff, and hopefully when things open up a bit more opportunities for the children to meet together. So in the summer term, we're looking at our year sixes going on team sessions, getting to know other people that they may be going to school with in year 7. Going through those awkward conversations of saying hello, how do you do, what are your hobbies, getting to know each other, because that's the hardest thing for the children, was sitting in a room in year 7 and getting to know each other. As I said earlier, homework's coming back on after Easter, and we're going to do a parents' evening before the end of May, so we can really start to unpick how things are going academically. And then the most exciting thing, which I'll pass over now to Mrs. Locke, is an offer that she will talk to you about. So I think she might have to do the next slide, please, as well, if you'd like me to do that as well, Mrs. Locke.
Thank you. Can you move this? Oh, thank you. Yeah, if you're happy to move the slides on, that'd be fab. Thank you. Hi everyone. Really pleased to be here. I've just recently joined as parent governor. I've got 2 children at the school, Benji and Oliver. Well, Oliver's now moved on, but they've both moved through the school. Benji's in Redwoods at the moment. I work at Boston College, and I think some of what we're talking about this evening is around that diversity. And us as a college, we see the children coming through from the feeder schools, and we're really aware of how diverse our community is. And for a village school like Sibsey, and we're so lucky it's got the family feel, it's how we get that balance right in ensuring our children are prepared for moving to schools in Boston, which will be so much more diverse for them. So yeah, just a few things to run through, and then we'll advise you about how you can get in touch if you're interested. So yeah, just we're all here tonight because we want to have a voice, else we wouldn't be here with Mr. Wright this evening. It's really important that as parents we have a chance to have a voice and contribute to the work that the school's doing. I know we're all really proud of what the school's done during lockdown and the plans for the future, but really it's just how we can support with those priorities and plans, help the school to be even better at what they already do, keep the school continuing to be brilliant and getting even better, and then the community piece as well. So it's our chance to give ideas that will help our children, but also the community. So we've come up with a new initiative, which we just wanted to mention tonight. There's already loads of ways to get involved with the school, and some of you may be involved in these ways. So obviously you can be a parent governor. There's the Friends of Sibsey School, which are really active and do so much work to put on events for our children and fundraise and support the school. Obviously we can access sessions like this evening and open afternoons as the lockdown eases, be able to come back into school. But the new bit inside there is that we want to establish a parent council. So I'll tell you a little bit about what that'll involve on the next slide. Because it's going to be new, we will be sort of finding our way with this a little bit, but we see this as really a way to sort of build on the family feel of the school. And also, like Mr. Wright said, during lockdown, everyone's been so supportive of the school and helping the school to keep running so well and so safely. So it's our chance to continue that and build on it. We'd like to establish a group. We thought we'd call it the Parent Council because we have the Pupil Council, so it aligns it. We're looking for hopefully up to 12 parents who might be interested, and we'd like to come together informally and, you know, keep it fun and but with a serious focus to enhance the school approximately 6 times a year, so once a half term. And really, you know, you've heard from Mr. Wright about all the things the school have got on the horizon about their key priorities, but on this slide I've listed some, you know, for me as a parent, and safety has got to come first, hasn't it? Our children feeling safe, but Mr. Wright's comment earlier about them being informed but without being scared. I think how we can support with that, I think it's a really hard balance, because sometimes they can feel alarmed, but not knowing those things means they're not prepared. So how we can support with that, supporting with things like the SIBSI scale and the children being ready to learn post-COVID and again prepared for their next steps. And then the diversity, which obviously the last few slides we've talked about. Like I said, I'm at Boston College, and over a third of our learners haven't got English as a first language. So we've got a really diverse population within the school, likewise within our parents. And many of our feeder schools, the secondary schools, have a similar diverse community. And for our children moving from SIBSI to that, I think there's some work we can do as a little group of parents about how to better prepare our children and what we'd like to see the school do, and how we can work with community activity to support with that. I think as well, the values that we've looked at today, you know, that's really lovely seeing what the children have put together, but what work could we do as a group of parents to support that even more? And really just, you know, looking about how we can help with our children sort of living by those values and what work we might want to do to support with that. So we'd really like to hear from you if you'd like to be interested in getting involved. Please just drop me an email. I think Mr. Wright is sending out a survey as well after this evening, and that'll give you a chance to register as well. So I'll hand back to Mr. Wright now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think you delivered that much better than I did when I did it on behalf of you earlier on today. So thank you very much. And I'm really am grateful for Mrs. Locke, who's come up with this idea. It's what I like about it as well, is that you do hear a lot from me. It would be really nice for you to have that power specifically with Mrs. Locke to make that change for the school, because we won't get everything right. We can't possibly get everything right. We try our hardest to make all the decisions on behalf of the children, but that's not to say everything's right first time. But we do need your feedback to make that better. So I know that it's been a barrage of information, but your feedback today would be so helpful, because without it, it's not going to be aimed around all the things that you're thinking about. So really do appreciate you filling in as much as you can of the survey. And thank you so much for just coming tonight and supporting us in this last year and previous to that. But I hope you do have a lovely evening if we get kicked off in a moment, and a lovely Easter as well if I don't see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for everything you do to support the school. And other than that, take care and I'll see you soon.